Solar scammers nearly conned this customer out of thousands. In this video, we reveal a massive solar scam that is affecting people all around the country. I've had a few calls about this now. So please, if you do find this video beneficial, make sure you share it out so that other people can avoid being scammed too. So let me explain the scam. So I received this email from a customer and I instantly knew it was a scam. Hi, I wonder if you can help. My parents have a solar system installed. It has a 3.5 kilowatt Solar Edge HD Wave PV inverter which is showing an error light. Their supplier went bust several years ago, so no help was available to them. An electrician came round earlier today, not because of the light, but as a result of a cold call to check up on the installation, and noticed an overvoltage on the incoming main supply. He somewhat glibly mentioned to my dad that he really should get a voltage optimiser installed to protect the inverter, and scribbled down a quote of £2,100 including VAT. My father was almost a recent victim of a company selling him a solar maintenance contract for £1,750. which all I could see was 3 panel cleans and 2 electrical checks over 3 years. Do you guys have experience in the installation of such devices? Any help from a decent reputable company would be much appreciated. Look forward to hearing from you. Many thanks, Grant. So let's go over there and see what's really going on. So Grant, you dropped us an email because you were a little bit worried about something. Tell us what happened.
So a couple of months ago, I had a phone call from my father, to my left here. He just signed up for a contract for solar panel maintenance, and it was a cleaning and a maintenance contract. It was a 3-year contract, £1,750. When we were speaking about it, I thought, well, if it covers everything, it might not be a bad deal, including the inverter and all the expensive components, things that can go wrong. But the more I looked over the contract, the more I thought, I'm not sure what you've bought here.
So is this the company who came and offered the maintenance contract?
So this was the maintenance. So this was 1,750 quid. Length of cover, yep, they crossed out everything and then marked it 3 years. And then additional contact details, 16 panels, 3 cleans yearly, 2 electrical. So I'm not quite sure why he stuck that there. It just looked like it'd been scribbled out in a bit of a hurry. The company website didn't tie in with the company details, so it was a site under maintenance, or a friend was building the site. The address on the contract didn't match the address in company's house, so that set the warning bells firing.
And you know what, this stinks to me of a scam in general because of a few things. So the email address that they've used is @outlook.com. It's not even at thecompanyname.co.uk or whatever, so they've just set up some kind of dodgy email address for it. And also this piece of paper that's just hand filled out stinks to me of a salesman who's getting commission and he's just going round trying to sell as many maintenance contracts as he can. He's getting his 100 quid every time he sells it or whatever it is, and then he's passing it on to some other company who may or may not actually turn up and do the job.
So I did a bit of digging into the company and immediately contacted them to say, we're cancelling this. All credit to the company involved. There was a lot of toing and froing, but they capitulated in the end. So that was the first experience. And then
so let's just go over to you, Colin, then and find out a bit more. So how did that all come about? Like, how did they approach you for that contract?
Well, they came and said that they knew of the company that we originally had doing it, that had ceased trading. And so they were just offering to clean the panels and check them as they went. For me, it was just they come in to clean the panels, make a quick check to make sure that the panels were working, and end of story. But it didn't quite end like that.
Yeah.
I think then that's when they got approached by the second company, and I think that was a cold call. The company approached my mum, called my mum. Don't know how they got hold of her contact details. And she said, no, you'll have to speak to my husband. The next thing we know is the company turns up out front and said, oh, I've spoken to your wife and we're going to do it. It's a free check. So we're going to check your solar installation. We'll get up on the roof, check the panels, check the inverter out and everything.
Now this makes me very angry. We often hear about people cold calling vulnerable customers and doing the hard sell on them, whether it's high pressure tactics or making promises that just sound too good to be true. These snake oil salesmen are only out there to do one thing: take your hard-earned cash without really deserving it. So there are 5 things you can do to protect yourself. Number 1, whatever company you're thinking of employing, do your research. Search for them on Google, check their reviews online, make sure they're legit, just like our customer here did. Number 2, avoid high pressure sales tactics. If someone says something that sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Number 3, get multiple quotes. Make sure that the ballpark that they're offering you is within the normal expected range. Number 4, if they tell you that there are special government grants or incentives that you qualify for, make sure you do your research and check up, because often salesmen will use this as a tactic to try and get you in when there aren't any government grants really available. Number 5, if you're really not sure, get a local trusted tradesperson to check it for you, or even better yet, give us a call if you're in our area. And lastly, trust your instincts. If something just doesn't feel quite right, go with your gut, step back, give yourself time to do research and cool off before you make any buying decisions.
This time, no money exchanged hands.
Yeah.
But it's a free check. I've had this kind of thing, a free MOT, and you know what's coming. There's going to be a big bill at the end of it. I'm not sure exactly what the guys were doing. They were tinkering with the inverter, and then they explained to my dad, you've got an over voltage on the grid, pushing back higher than 240 volts. The point they were making was that this is going to burn out your inverter. And if that's the case, that's a £4,000-5,000 cost. So we can sell you this great voltage optimizer, which will protect your inverter and all the products in your house from an over voltage.
So let's just pause for a second and think. What is a voltage optimizer? Is it even a thing? This is a voltage optimizer. It's a device that adjusts and stabilizes the incoming electricity supply to a property to an optimal level, potentially improving energy efficiency and prolonging appliance lifespan. You might need a voltage optimizer if you have a particularly high incoming voltage, or if the voltage to your property is subject to lots of fluctuations, or if you've got sensitive equipment that might be super valuable and sensitive to fluctuations in voltage. But these devices are very expensive and only really needed in rare situations. At the end of this video, I'm going to share with you a completely free way to get your voltage sorted if you do have an over voltage or an under voltage coming from the grid.
At this point, I thought, well, the jury's out on whether we actually need it, and that's when I contacted you.
And I was so glad that you did, because as soon as I saw your email, a penny dropped with me, because I'd had a friend of mine who actually lives in the Isle of Wight, about a year ago, approached me about exactly the same thing. And she's a vulnerable lady, she's disabled, somebody had come and done exactly the same thing. The previous company had gone bust. Somehow they'd managed to get all the contact details of the customers of that previous company, whether they bought a list or something, I don't know. And then they contacted her for a free check and then offered her this £2,000 voltage optimizer. So today we're here to figure out, do you actually need a voltage optimizer? Is your system working correctly? But I looked on which.co.uk, and it's the 2 biggest solar scams are selling maintenance contracts that aren't really needed, or for very inflated prices, and selling voltage optimizers that aren't really needed. Well, so it's a very common scam, unfortunately.
That's useful to know, yes. It's really frustrating, the targeting vulnerable people. I mean, my parents are both in their 80s, and you know, it's really cynical.
Well, we appreciate you being willing to come in front of the camera and share your story, because hopefully this will help a lot of people to figure out what is going on and to avoid it. So what I'm going to do now is do a check on your system and find out, do you have an overvoltage, and then share some tips of what we might be able to do about it that won't cost you a penny.
Brilliant.
Does that sound good?
That's fantastic. Excellent. Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So first things first, I'm going to do a quick check on the roof, make sure everything looks okay under the panels, and then we're going to check the inverter, but most importantly we're going to check the voltage to see if there is actually an overvoltage, and if so, what we can do about it. So here we've got 16 panels, and as you can see they are getting a bit dirty. Now there is pigeon poo and lichen that has started to build up. And now actually lichen takes a long time to grow, so that indicates to me that they haven't actually been cleaned for quite a while. And of course, having a bit of dirt and dust will reduce the efficiency of the panels a little bit over time, so it's definitely worth getting a clean. But my question is it worth £1,700 to get them cleaned? So it seems like at a moment the customer has had the inverter replaced with a solar edge one, and they've had optimizers fitted underneath. So what I'm looking at is, have the optimizers been installed correctly? There's some big bunches of DC cable tied up here. It doesn't look too bad, to be fair. There is quite a lot of debris that's sort of built up underneath over time. I reckon these have been in for at least 10 years. Interestingly, it looks like that panel there is a bit cracked, like the glass is cracked or something. So it'd be interesting to see on the solar edge optimizers if there's a loss of efficiency on that panel, and we can hopefully check that if we can get connected up to the solar edge app. So this is a fairly standard solar setup. This is what we call the inverter. Now this is sort of the brain of the solar system, and what it does is it takes the power that's coming from the solar panels and it transforms it or inverts it from DC, which is what solar panels produce, which is direct current, into AC or alternating current, which is what you can use in your house. If you were to just take the two wires from the back of a solar panel and just plug them into a socket in your house, it would cause all sorts of chaos, because all of your stuff in your house runs off AC and not DC, but solar panels produce DC. So you need this is important, and this is a solar edge one, which means that each panel has an optimizer underneath it. The optimizer basically make sure that each panel is working to maximum efficiency. So it's a very good system, solar edge, what we fit as standard, and it means that you can also monitor how much each panel is performing, how much energy each panel is producing. Often people have batteries as well, but in this case there is no battery storage, but usually the battery is located somewhere near to the inverter, sometimes directly connected into the inverter. So this is where it's all fed from, a solar PV circuit in the consumer unit or fuse box. In this case, a little alarm bell for me is that it's all fed off one RCD, all of these circuits, and according to regulations, a solar circuit should have its own separate RCD or just be on an MCB, so that's something that I would find concerning.
Now, it's a fact that lots of companies that were trading as solar installers are no longer in existence. They've gone bust or shut down and changed their name. So what if the installer who did your solar panels is no longer in existence? Well, if you're getting contacted out of the blue by other companies, you need to be asking where they've got your contact details from. Don't quickly jump to the opportunity to get somebody else involved in your solar install. Carefully consider any offers that are made and any add-ons that they might be selling to you. I found a great article on which.co.uk which talks about solar add-ons that you don't really need, and it talks about these two scams and some other scams that are out there of people trying to sell you stuff that you don't really need. I'll leave a link to that article below.
So it's a nice sunny day, so it's a perfect opportunity to test this system to see if it's working properly, and also check out what this over voltage thing is all about. So I'm going to get the tester out. So I'm testing this with my fancy multifunction tester, but in reality you can do it with any kind of accurate voltage tester like a multimeter or even a plug-in voltage tester. But 245 volts, is that too high or not?
For customers connected on a normal single phase supply here in the UK, the nominal voltage or the standard voltage that is the baseline is 230 volts. According to the Electrical Safety, Quality and Continuity Regulations 2002, the voltages should stay within a certain norm. That norm is plus 10% or minus 6% of the 230 volts, which means the maximum allowable is 253 volts and the minimum is 216 volts.
So 245 volts is perfectly within the norms, and I wouldn't be worried about that. How solar works is that the inverter has to push out a higher voltage of AC than the base on the grid, so that the house uses the solar voltage first rather than pulling power from the grid. So to have solar, you're always going to have a slightly higher voltage than a normal base voltage anyway. If it was over 253 volts, I would be worried, and then we could do something, but currently as it stands, it's absolutely fine.
Now here's the thing. Some people really do have an overvoltage on their system. If that happens though, it's not your fault and it's not your problem to deal with. The DNO or distribution network operator are responsible for making sure that the voltage at your home stays within those guidelines. So if it's over that or under that, all you need to do is report it to the DNO and they will send somebody out to investigate, and if it's really a problem, they will fix it on your behalf and you won't have to pay a penny.
So although the customer's got Solar Edge, he doesn't have any knowledge of how he can actually monitor his individual panel level on the system. I'm going to try and log into this inverter now and see if I can get that set up for him and do a quick firmware update as well, just so that I know everything's up to scratch. So it says there's a meter communication error, which I think means that the Modbus meter that actually reads all the data for the system may not have been set up properly. So I'm going to check out, it's probably in this box. So we need to find out where the CT is for this. So what they've done is they've not set the CT reading properly. The CT rating should be 100 and they set it as 0. So hopefully if I set it as 100 now, that'll solve the problem. So this is the main CT clamp or current transformer. Yeah. This reads how much power your house is using, and therefore how much you're exporting or importing. So this is quite an important connection, and we found that it doesn't seem to have been set up properly. So we're just going into the settings and making sure that that is set up correctly for you. I was just saying to Colin that the voltage is fine, it's 246 at the moment. If it was over though, what we would do is phone UK Power Networks, who own all the supply cables, and just report it to them, and then they can tap it down on the local transformer, and they'll do that for free, so you don't need to spend £2,100 on an optimiser.
Because he was talking in terms, because he was standing here with his telephone and looking at, and he was playing with that switch underneath there, that with the red toggle there. Yeah. And he was playing with that and saying, okay, well the voltage is down now, and it's below the figure. Yeah, I'm not aware of the ability to do that without voiding the warranty on these. I know you can mess around with some of that stuff on the Solar Edge inverters, but you can void the warranty if you do that. So I wouldn't be messing around with that stuff. But I'm talking to Solar Edge Technical now. And just seeing what they can do with the Modbus meter because it's not reading properly. So we managed to get into the Solar Edge system now and check a few things. We've looked at that panel that was cracked and it is outputting slightly less power than the others, but it's only very minimal, so not something to be worried about particularly. But we've got access to the Solar Edge monitoring portal now where we can keep an eye on it. We've also found out that the Solar Edge meter has not been wired up properly, so we're not getting any of the import and export data that we should be getting. So that needs a little bit of further investigation. But the good news is the voltage is okay, and in general the system's working okay. It's just that the monitoring side of things is not quite as it should be. At least we know that the voltage is fine and it's generating fine, it's doing what it should be doing. So that's good. Yeah. Hopefully it gives you a bit of peace of mind and saves you about £3,000 of maintenance and optimisers. I can afford a brush now to clean the work.
There'll be one cold beer, please.
By all means.
No, but I think it's just good to have somebody check it and get a second opinion, isn't it? And,
it is.
And it's a good system and it should work very well for a long, long time to come. So enjoy that free solar energy. After giving the system a thorough check, I'm happy to have been able to put the customer's mind at ease that they don't need an expensive voltage optimizer and the system's actually working fine. But I'd love to know from you guys in the comments, have you been scammed like this in the past, or do you know somebody who has? I'd love to know if there are more people out there who are being affected by these scams. But either way, if you've enjoyed this video, it really helps if you share it out. And why not sit back, grab a cup of tea and watch this video here or this video here, because those videos are the ones that YouTube thinks that you'll enjoy.